Rocky Mountain River running through the trees. Daybreak breaking down in Tennessee. Midday sky out in Santa Fe with the sun sinking down over a field of grain. And it's called the land of the brave. The whole world knows our name. One God and 50 states.
Hello, and welcome back to the Woke is Broke podcast. I am your host, Joshua Stenko, back from my sabbatical, and tonight is our Halloween special. Now, full disclosure, in case you notice my hair is a little bit different, I was planning on going as a Captain America for tonight's special, but my outfit kind of got shrunk in the wash a little bit. In any event, I am going instead as an unwoke James Bond, and in that spirit, let's get into it because we did miss quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. So, in inflation news, McDonald's has decided to partner with the tech giant IBM. Why? To develop artificial intelligence technology that will help the fast food chain automate its drive-thru lanes. Translation, they're replacing a portion of their employees with robots. Right, because that's what happens when you stay home collecting unemployment in order to bargain a higher salary on top of just being lazy, right? Eventually the salary that you're trying to bargain gets so high that it's actually cheaper for companies to invest millions of dollars into technology just to replace you, right? You freaking skid mark. I mean, freaking A. This whole thing is just an unbelievable joke, right? I know a lot of restaurant owners out in the area in Savannah right now who are getting calls from people to set up interviews and then show up to the interviews and then just walk out or intentionally bomb the interviews or just cancel them at the last minute so that they can keep collecting unemployment. The pandemic has done a fantastic job of revealing just how many people will be schlubs if you give them the room to be schlubs. I mean, freaking A. So no, I can't blame McDonald's for doing this, right? We've seen grocery stores start to do it. I mean, the reality is if you're a business, you're in the business of making money, right? And you have to do what's cost effective for you. So no, I don't blame McDonald's for doing this. I do blame Biden. I do blame the unemployment system that we have in this country right now that is literally just funneling money out of my pockets and out of your pockets and into the pockets of the people who don't go out there, don't try their best, don't work their hardest. And we get to see companies figure out ways that they don't have to hire anyone, not just the lazy ones, anyone anymore, in order to cover their fiscal costs. So freaking A. I will say in regards to the AIs running the drive-thru lanes, I do hope that McDonald's and IBM decide to kind of retain the human element of the drive-thru lanes, you know, maybe program their AIs to be like passive-aggressive. Can I get that sandwich without pickles? No substitutions, you jackass! So, at the very least, we could expect the drive-thru lanes to hopefully run a little bit smoother and a little bit faster. But in other inflation news, if you were looking to getting your fast food a little quicker, this might put the damper in it. Toilet paper and diapers are going to be going up in prices. This comes by way of the Jewish link. And I have to clarify, this story was available at a lot of other news outlets. We chose the Jewish link to be our source for this episode. Well, because they have a funny name. Anyways, thanks to the reporting at the Jewish link, Consumer giant Kimberly-Clark warns of inflation pressures. Toilet paper and diaper prices likely to go up. So get your Depends while you can, because in no time you're probably going to be using dirty tissues as toilet paper, or vice versa. We got that to look forward to. In any event, I think it's time for some international news. Let's get into it. Now, the first story for international news comes by way of our favorite little terrorist nation, Iran. Now, you might remember a few weeks ago, I covered the story of Iran, how they're potentially just weeks away from having weapons-grade nuclear material, right? Well, I guess they just couldn't wait. I guess they just got a little bit too antsy, right? Because according to U.S. officials, Iran was responsible for a drone strike in Syria last week, right? This comes by way of Yahoo News. U.S. officials say Iran responsible for a drone strike in southern Syria last week. A military outpost where American troops are based was hit. Now, there were no injuries or deaths reported, thank God for that. But while the drones while the drones weren't launched from Iran, they were Iranian made, and it appears Iran facilitated their use. And what is the U.S.'s response to Iran bombing or attempting to bomb us and our allies? Resuming talks with the Iranians to pick up the Iran nuclear deal again? It's got to be awesome being the number one funder of international terrorism these days, when you can just launch drone strikes at the United States and her allies and have the U.S. thank you by helping you to attain nuclear power. That's got to be awesome to be you guys. I mean, freaking A. This administration is such an unbelievable joke. It's such an unbelievable joke. Honest to God. Our second story for international news comes by way of Afghanistan. That desolate wasteland, that no man's land, that hotbed of terrorism that Biden just unilaterally decided to abandon. Well, apparently, this comes by way of CNN. The Biden administration is said to be nearing an agreement with Pakistan to use their airspace to conduct military intelligence and operations in Afghanistan. Now, it's almost like none of that would have been even remotely necessary if we just stayed in Afghanistan in the first place, right? And people will say to me, what, did you just want to stay there forever? Yes, I wanted to stay there forever. You want to know why? Because what's happening in Afghanistan right now was always going to happen when and if we left. Okay? When you're playing chess with somebody, strategically speaking, you can place your pawns in specific positions and keep them there for the entire game. All right? They are strategically placed. They do not move until the game either reaches a stalemate or it's over. Okay? When you are talking about the international stage, you need to have military positions at key strategic points in order to address threats and nip them in the butt where and when they arise, and in order to be able to accurately obtain intelligence. That way we don't just blow up a U.S. aid worker and his 7 children like Biden did on our last days in Afghanistan. You don't just look from a satellite and guess that it's the right target. You have people on the ground feeding you accurate intelligence. All right? In Afghanistan, short of us taking over the entire country and claiming it as U.S. territory, all right, it was always going to be an open door for bad guys, which is why we needed people there to ensure it didn't get out of hand and to ensure it didn't get over to us. I mean, honest to God, I don't understand this. I don't understand how we still haven't learned this lesson yet. Every single time you bury your head in the sand, every single time you bury your head in the sand and cling to the belief that if you just keep to your borders, then your enemies will also keep to their borders. Every time we have tried that as a country, it has nipped us in the butt every freaking time. And it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. At least, according to the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, Colin Cowell, he says ISIS could be capable of launching an attack against the U.S. within 6 to 12 months. Who could have seen that coming? You know, their season 2 premiere was on the anniversary of 9/11. And, I said, I don't remember 9/11. I was 5 years old at the time. I tell you what, I don't want to remember another 9/11. All right? And it's looking like it's short of overt military action right now. It's looking like it's probably going to happen at some point in the near future. And that scares the hell out of me, and it should scare the hell out of you. And the thing that gets me about it all is that it was all avoidable. None of this had to happen. None of it had to happen. But Biden, he just wanted that cheap political win. He just wanted the 20th anniversary of 9/11 to roll around and say, I got all the troops out of that. The war's over. Just like Obama, right? Just like Obama. You pull all the guys out of Iraq and suddenly the war is just over. Is that how that works? Is that how that works? You just pull all of your cops out of the bad parts of town and crime just ceases to exist. Give me a break. Only in Washington. Only in Washington. Honest to God. And you know, I get that all these updates on the international scale seem a little bleak, but I think it is important to bear in mind the bigger picture. We're screwed. This concludes our international news for the day. And now for some uplifting news, because God knows we need some. This is an article by CNN titled, "A White Hospital Executive Says He Was Fired and Replaced by 2 Women as Part of Diversity Push. He was just awarded $10 million in a wrongful termination lawsuit." Let's try reading that title again without the extraordinarily biased leftist framing. Here we go. A hospital executive who was fired for not being diverse enough was just awarded $10 million in a wrongful termination lawsuit. Now that's a little better. Now, the man's name was David Duvall. He was hired as the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications in 2013 by Novant Health Incorporated, before being fired without warning, mind you, in 2018. Now, he went on to sue the company, right, saying he was replaced by a white woman and a black woman, and this is, according to the lawsuit, quote, "for the express purpose of increasing gender and racial diversity among Novant executives." And all of this despite, again, this is the language in the lawsuit, quote, "despite performing at a high level and exceeding the performance expectations." So what are you saying? When you give minorities an artificial one-up by hiring them for the express purpose of the color of their skin, that white people inevitably get the shaft? That's a ridiculous claim. That's a racist claim. How dare you? How dare you? But the jury didn't find it that way. Jury didn't see it that way. No, according to the jury, they ruled that Duvall had proven that his race, Caucasian, and or his sex, male, was a motivating factor in Novant Health's decision to terminate him. So Mr. Duvall is a multimillionaire now, and good on him. Good on him. I mean, honestly, I'm hoping that we start to see more lawsuits like this, because let's be honest, affirmative action has outlived whatever good it could have possibly done. All right, you could make an argument for it in the 1960s, sure. Not today. Not today. Okay? The reality is that we are not living in the Jim Crow South anymore. We haven't for a very long time. And anyone who tells you that they are not where they want to be in their life because of systemic racism is a damned liar and a coward. Okay? Poverty affects everyone equally, right? If you're born poor and white, it is just as bad as being born poor and black. Go talk to the white poor people living in the Appalachians right now, and they will tell you just how miserable life is. Yes, sometimes we get born into situations that are shitty and are outside of our control, and sometimes we get shitty situations thrown at us later in life, and that is outside of our control. What isn't outside of our control is harnessing the opportunities and the freedoms that we have today, that people 60, 80, 90 years ago didn't have. The things that they fought for, the things that they gave up trying to attain, those freedoms, those opportunities. And for people to sit around and to resign themselves to sitting alone in a room, hating people and blaming the world for the way their life turned out, it's just a slap in the face to everything, every awful thing that was endured by people who were denied things due to some real evils occurring in our society some decades ago. All right? You want to talk about the people who make it in life, about the people who overcome hardship? Those people put in an immense amount of work. They sacrifice, they struggle, but the one thing they have in common is that they have an attitude and a knowledge that their destiny is in their hands, not society's. And the people who never make anything of themselves, the people who are resigned to abject misery or mediocrity for the rest of their life, those people are the ones sticking to the idea that anytime you don't get something that you want, anytime life deals you a bad hand, anytime things just get shitty, it's because of society, not because of you, not because of the decisions that you made that could have negatively impacted your life or positively impacted your life. Not because of you, it's because of everybody else. And that is a spit in the face to everything Martin Luther King Jr. stood for. It's a spit in the face to everything the civil rights movement fought for. And there's absolutely no excuse for it. There's absolutely no excuse for it in today's day and age. Absolutely not. But in other good news, real-life feral ghoul and current Chicago mayor Lori Lightfoot was booed out at an annual fundraiser in Chicago. See some of that footage.
Lori Lightfoot! I knew that was going to happen. Ouch.
Now, Miss Lightfoot was visibly upset after the whole ordeal, and she was interviewed after the fundraiser. Here's what she had to say. Now, for those of you not fluent in feral ghoul, we were given a translation of Miss Lightfoot's comments by CNN. She said, "What do I have to say to my constituents? Screw them, don't they know I'm God?" Okay, well, all the more power to her, I guess. It's not every day that somebody who's born with their skin inside out gets to run a city into the ground, but she does, so good on her. Moving on. Now, this story obviously broke during our little 2-week hiatus there. But I do have to cover it at least a little bit. You probably know the highlights at this point already. Scott Smith, the Virginia school district parent who was arrested, had a school board meeting for getting a little rowdy, and promptly became the poster child for the National School Board Association, saying, "This man is endemic in that all of these parents they're all domestic terrorists. They're threatening us. They're rowdy. They're violent. They're gonna kill us." It turns out that Scott Smith had good reason for getting a little rowdy at the school board meeting, since his daughter was raped in the girls' bathroom by a boy wearing a skirt, and then the school board and the superintendent of the school district attempted to cover it up, bury it, right? So he had some cause for being a little bit upset, I would say. Just a little bit. But in regards to the skirt-wearing boy who allegedly raped 2 girls in 2 separate high schools over the span of just a few months, he had an interesting explanation for just what happened to Scott Smith's daughter in the bathroom that day. He says his skirt caught on his wristwatch and he slipped. Now, as someone who can't even get out of a chair without my dick just falling into things, I have to admit, even I was a little bit skeptical of his explanation. I was, until I saw empirical evidence that he is in fact innocent. What am I talking about? I'm talking about a live-action simulation of the alleged event provided to us by the boy's legal defense. Here it is. Well, I know I'm sold. The jury, not so much. They found the boy guilty of sexually assaulting a female student in the girls' bathroom earlier this week. And hopefully he rots in jail for the rest of his freaking life. Okay? And honest to God, that goes the same for every piece of crap who tried burying this. And every piece of crap in the school board association, who has no problem turning a blind eye to minors being raped. And not that the age should really matter, but it does. It absolutely does. Because we're talking about children here. High school students, yes. Children, yes. Children. They should be protected. They should be looked out for. And instead, the people that we've entrusted our children with have no problem just ignoring rape happening in their schools so long as it is politically convenient for them. Those are the people running the school districts right now in Virginia. And it's a scary thought. Who are the people running the school districts elsewhere in the country? Where else has this happened that we just haven't heard the stories of yet? If it wasn't for the Daily Wire doing a little digging, we probably would never have known that Scott Smith's daughter was a rape victim. And that's relevant to the conversation that we're having. That is relevant to parents speaking out against school boards and wanting some accountability, wanting their children to be protected, wanting their children to not be indoctrinated at these school systems. That is absolutely relevant. Yeah, it is a scary thought. Good God.
With a light in the window for There's an old-fashioned home in New Hampshire with a light in the window for me.
Well, I gotta say, it is nice being your own sponsor on your own show. That was the book trailer for my book, Rockers Creek, available on the Amazon Marketplace. Oh, and buy my book! In any event, back to the news. So, the gubernatorial election for Virginia is coming up next week. Terry McAuliffe versus Glenn Youngkin. And I gotta say, in the same way that the Gavin Newsom recall election was symbolic for the state of California, at least I believe so, as to whether or not there was any hope left for that state. As soon as was revealed that Gavin Newsom won by a landslide, I'm of the mind that there's no hope for California at this point. I think that recall election was evidence that there was no level of bad that could happen out there that would convince people to vote another way. And Virginia right now is on the docket. I think this gubernatorial election is also symbolic because Terry McAuliffe, aside from just being a general, just an all-around awful person, he's not running a campaign. He's running an anti-campaign at this point. You know, the polls are split, like 50-50 right now between him and Glenn Youngkin. He could whip Glenn Youngkin's butt like that if he wanted to. All he would have to do is pretend to be just slightly more moderate than he actually is, or to just keep his mouth shut. And instead, he goes out there and says that, yeah, parents shouldn't be allowed to decide what their children are being taught in schools. And then, despite that being a very, very, very hot topic issue right now in Virginia, and then he doubles down on it, and then he triples down on it, and then he walks out of interviews without asking questions, and then he openly dodges and insults reporters trying to get some actual questions out of him. For all intents and purposes, it's like everything he's doing is intentionally trying to sabotage his own campaign. Like I said, if he just played it just slightly more moderately, it wouldn't be even close right now between him and Glenn Youngkin, but it is. And so, if he can get away with that, and if all the other scandals piling up against him right now, including being linked to a law firm that is actively fighting against female students in public schools who have been raped, viciously raped, that just came out this week, right? If he can survive all of that and still win an election, I think it just speaks waves as to how much influence not just the media, but corrupt politicians have in general, right? If all it takes is Don Lemon throwing in a good word for you and Barack Obama flying his way down to Virginia and talking you up and saying that parents' outrage over their kids being raped in school is fake outrage. If you can do all that, get away with all that, and that's all it takes to save your butt politically speaking, what the hell hope does Virginia have? What the hell hope does any of us have? It's very, very, very concerning, and I'm hoping and praying that Glenn Youngkin does take the governorship. I really freaking do. There's some real change that needs to happen in Virginia. And, I keep hearing from a bunch of conservatives, saying, especially in regards to the schooling issue, that we, just put your kids in private school, right? Or just move out of state. Well, here's the thing. I grew up middle class, lower middle class, and I dropped out of high school, right? I had a very difficult time in high school. My mom, I love my mom. She raised me. She took care of me. She provided for me, my brother, and my sister. I know how hard she worked for the money that she got to take care of us. I do. And I know she would have loved to have been able to put me in like a private school where I might have had a chance or a better chance of succeeding. Like I said, there were a lot of issues going on in high school at the time. She didn't have that money. And the same way, there are parents down there in Virginia right now who absolutely don't have the money to just take their kids out of the public school system and throw them in a private school, who just aren't in a position to just pack up their bags and move out of the state. So yeah, this election matters to a lot of people out there who are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And it's going to be very difficult getting the school boards out of there and replacing them with people who actually care about kids if they can't even get rid of the governor who's endorsing and supporting all of that in the first place. So yeah, we'll be keeping a close eye on that election coming up. But one little last little commentary, if you will. Joe Biden flew down to support Terry McAuliffe recently, and he gave one of the most vile and chilling speeches I have ever heard in my life. Let's listen to a quick snippet of that.
Extremism can come in many forms. can come in the rage of a mob driven to assault the Capitol. It can come in a smile and a fleece vest. Either way, the big lie is still a big lie. So Virginia, show up.
Right there. That was key. Glenn Youngkin, indistinguishable from the people who broke into the Capitol, indistinguishable from the people who showed up to the Capitol with zip ties and were going to try and kill Mike Pence. Indistinguishable. Glenn Youngkin, an enemy of the state. An enemy of the state. That has a certain ring to it, doesn't it? Doesn't it? You know, I used to feel bad for Joe Biden on just a basic human level, right? To see somebody who is very clearly suffering from dementia and to see their mind, their memories be eaten up like a wildfire. As somebody who has a close family member who is suffering from the very same thing, yeah, I had sympathy for Joe Biden on that basic human level. But I don't anymore. And you know why? It's because Joe Biden is not just a deeply immoral man, he is an evil man. And, Alzheimer's or not, it's clear that whatever is eating up his mind has not eaten up the evil in his heart. If anything, it's emboldened it. It's strengthened it, right? Because there's no more hiding what the agenda is, if ever there was, right? There's no more obfuscating. There's no more using fancy language to allude to what you really mean or to hint at what you actually mean. Now, for Joe Biden and the people in his administration right now, they're just up and telling you, straight up, if you don't agree with us, you are an enemy of the state, right? And what he's actually saying, is this. You think you get to choose? You think you get to choose what medicine you take? You think you get to choose who you vote for? You think you get to choose where you get your news, what you get to believe? You do not. Because Joe Biden, am the state. And if you go against me, then I will reveal to you in short order just how much of an illusion your sense of freedom is. We will pressure your companies to take your job away from you. We will sick the IRS on you. We will take your children from you if that's what it takes. We will exile you and ruin you. And only when you have lost everything that you hold dear will we allow you to come crawling back to us so that we can give you the scraps off our plates. Joe Biden is an evil man, and everything that he said in that speech is exactly the same, historically speaking, as the tyrannical rhetoric that preceded every major mass human tragedy ever. When you tell your constituents that your political dissidents are the same as terrorists, that leads to some pretty ugly things. And when the people in charge are the ones saying it, well, there's just nothing good that can come from that. And that's why it's on us. You, me. That's why it's on us to make a change. It sounds cliche, but this isn't the America I grew up in. It's not the America I planned or expected to hand down to my children. And it doesn't have to be. Because as long as you're still here, as long as you wake up in the morning and you're breathing in air, you have a chance to do something good. You have a chance to do something great. And for the people in Virginia right now, what that looks like, what that is It's getting out there and canvassing and supporting Glenn Youngkin. It's fighting against your school boards. It's protesting. It's making noise. Peaceably, yes. Respectfully, ideally. Non-violently, absolutely. But it's doing everything that you can to make sure that the truth is heard, especially by the people who choose to ignore it. It's fighting like hell for the future. It's fighting like hell for your kids. It's fighting like hell for tomorrow. Because that's the only thing worth fighting for. So with that little monologuing out of the way, that's what I got to say on that. We are going to have some announcements coming on the channel later today in a separate video, so definitely keep an ear open for that. But in the meantime, I am Joshua Stanko saying it is good to be back. I did miss doing the show, and we hope you enjoyed the Halloween special. But in any event, we'll catch you next time. Stay safe. Stay informed. See you then.